Good morning to you on this Monday. I'm delighted to see you. Welcome to Ask the Theologian. I'm Dr. Randy White. We take your biblical, theological, worldview questions. We take good questions. We take bad questions, and we try to answer them. Sometimes we answer them. Sometimes we don't answer them. We'll just see. And if you don't like the answer, at least we've got an African violet. Right? Let's dig into some things today and see what you have to say. Lots happening in our world, of course. You know, just the other day, I ran across this article about the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky. Of course, Al Mohler, the untouchable, is the president there. He's uber Calvinist, and though he talks a decent game on social conservatism, he sure kisses up to him and refuses to condemn the social progressivism that has taken over the Southern Baptist Convention. He, by the way, is most likely the next one to be the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, which is an improvement from the current president. But nonetheless, I certainly, if I was voting in the Southern Baptist Convention, wouldn't be my vote. But here is the article I want to discuss as we begin our week. Southern Seminary retains names, vacates chair, establishes endowment. What's it all about? They met on October the 12th. And this first part really is what I want to talk about. During their fall board meeting, trustees declared the Joseph Emerson Brown Chair of Christian Theology, which has been held by Southern Seminary President R. Albert Mohler, to be vacant. Now, that doesn't mean anything. Mohler is still the teacher of Christian theology. He's still the president of the seminary. He gets paid the same thing. Everything is the same, except it's no longer called the Joseph Emerson Brown Chair of Christian Theology. Now, what it is, when absolutely everything stands the same except the label, it's called virtue signaling. Whoever owned Aunt Jemima did that recently, you know. Although, did they backtrack on it? I'm still seeing lots of Aunt Jemima stuff on the shelves. I don't know. But nonetheless, it's a virtue signaling. We change absolutely nothing, but we want to make sure we don't offend anybody. So they are no longer going to use the name Joseph Emerson Brown. And it goes on to say Brown, a governor of Georgia in the mid-19th century, made an investment of $50,000 in the 1870s. I didn't do any kind of figuring. Maybe Corey can do it while we're sitting here. What is an 1870, $50,000 in 1870, what's that worth today? See if we can figure that out. But $50,000 in the 1870s rescued the seminary financially. That is more important than what it's worth today. What it's worth today is the seminary exists today because of Joseph Emerson Brown.
7,000 short of $1 million.
7,000 short of $1 million is what we'll go with. So we gave $1 million, roughly, adjusted for inflation, in 1870. Now, again, even more important than that, the seminary would not exist had it not been for Joseph Emerson Brown. Now, so he gave this money, $50,000 in the 1870s, to rescue the seminary financially. But even then, Brown was a controversial figure for continuing to use black convict labor, a functional continuation of race-based slavery long after emancipation. This was a deal, and I'm not an expert on it. You can look it up. Where in Georgia and probably some other southern states, they kind of contrived this thing where a person had some debts, and many times, probably most times, and maybe even with racial intentions, I'm not sure, they said, look, if you've got debts that you can't pay, you go to prison. And we will lease out the prisoners to businesses. And so Joseph Emerson Brown leased out some of these prisoners with a railroad company that he ran, and he leased prisoners from the state. It was all totally legal. It was later a situation that stopped. Joseph Emerson Brown did it. Probably a lot of other people did it as well. They say here in the article, it was a functional continuation of race-based slavery. That there probably is another side of that argument there, but nonetheless, it was not a great policy, and Joseph Emerson Brown took advantage of this very legal policy. Now, because he did that, they say we must ask whether any name is wrongly commemorated in our institutional life, Mueller said. We don't get to choose history, but we do bear responsibility for who we are commemorating and why. Now, again, you're right. You don't get to choose history, and you don't have to accept everything in history. But the seminary does exists because of slaveholders. Period. Southern Seminary exists because of slaveholders. Governor Brown had, I believe, 19 slaves when he was governor of the state. Now, as I began to read about that, I looked back a little bit into an old newspaper, and here we go, the Atlanta Constitution, 4th of December, 1894. I'll read to you a little bit of it. This is Governor Emerson's death. Actually, by this time, it was Senator Emerson. He was governor for 3 terms during the Civil War. He then became later senator from Georgia in the later 1800s. And so this is the death, the funeral announcement, or actually not the announcement, but the description of the funeral of Governor James Emerson Brown. Now, right here, let's pick this up. It's in the middle of the article. They talk about what the preacher said, what some other politicians said. You know, a typical funeral. Let's have a parade of people through. One of the people was Dr. Kerfoot, who represented the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. And the next tribute was from the eloquent lips of Dr. Kerfoot of the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary in Louisville, Kentucky, which in 18, what was the date on there? 18 whatever it is, 92, somewhere in there. The Southern Seminary would not have existed. It would have closed were it not for James Emerson Brown. So he dies. The seminary, years later, this is 20, 30 years later, after he saved the seminary, at his funeral, they send representatives. What are they going to say? Dr. Kerfoot, I might add, we may get to it here, but the president of the seminary, Dr. Broadus, was ill and unable to make it. And so they sent Dr. Kerfoot. He said, "I'm not here," said he, "to speak, but have simply come to mourn with those who mourn and to weep with those who weep. It is known, perhaps, that Senator Brown was a loyal friend of the seminary, but the extent of his benefactions is perhaps not well known. He came to the rescue of the institution at a great crisis. The president and friends of the seminary were in deep trouble, and outlook was dark and forbidding. Dr. Broadus, that's James Broadus, he's the one of the most famous men in Southern Baptist history. Broadman is named partially after him. The broad of Broadman is for James Broadus. The man is for another man. I'm so good at my Southern Baptist history. Dr. Broadus, prayed that a man might be found among a number of wealthy and influential Baptists in the South to supply the help that was needed to sustain the college. Now, as you can imagine, they are saying this was an answer to prayer. The position of the Southern Seminary was that Governor Brown was sent of God to rescue the seminary. That was their position. He asked that Dr. Broadus come to Atlanta. This was in the days of the rescue of the seminary. Governor Brown asked that Dr. Broadus come to Atlanta and explain the situation. The result of this conference was a gift from the senator. From Senator Brown, large enough. This does not speak whether or not Senator Brown was large, but the gift was large enough to secure the needed relief. Governor Brown was subsequently placed at the head of the Board of Trustees and always presided over the meeting of the board with grace and dignity. Though numerous gifts had been made to the seminary, it was the liberality of Governor Brown that gave it new life. A set of resolutions deploring the death of Governor Brown was passed by the students and faculty of the institution, and in the place of Dr. Broadus, who is detained in Louisville by illness, I have come to represent the illness. Let me get back up here to the top of the column here. I have come to represent Dr. Broadus in the funeral services. May the favor and continued blessings of God rest upon the great state of Georgia, and may we all have grace to endure the burden of this great affliction. At the close of Dr. Kerfoot's remarks, Dr. McDonald gave the hymn number 509, It Is Well With My Soul, which was sung by the choir, no doubt beautifully. Now, again, what you have here is that a guy sacrificed big time money to keep a seminary alive. When you read other things about Governor Brown, he was very strong on the support of education and especially educating pastors. And so now, all these years, 125 years later after his death, now, well, it's not politically correct to honor him for saving the seminary. So we're going to virtue signal. Now we're going to drop his name, flush it down the toilet. Goodbye, Governor Brown, because cha-ching, we got your money, nanny, nanny, boo-boo. Am I wrong on it? When they, gave or took the name off, the Joseph Emerson Brown Chair of Christian Theology. I don't know the history of when they put the name onto that chair. This is a thing that seminaries do. It's a fundraising kind of thing. But at some point they put the name, maybe at his death, maybe it was some of these resolutions by the students and the faculty that honored him. Who knows? You could look into the history of that. I don't really know exactly when he became, when his name was used for this chair of Christian theology. But when Southern Seminary, just last week, or I guess last month, October 14th is the date of this particular article here, when Southern Seminary decided to flush his name down the toilet, they didn't give any money back. Keep the money, drop the name. This says something to me. If you happen to be one of those rich people with lots of money to donate, God bless you. Be very careful about donating to an institution of higher learning, because many times that institution of higher learning, we have seen this more often than we've not seen it. That institution of higher learning changes so quickly that the founders would not recognize the institution they founded. The early principles of the institution are gone. And when you give your money perpetually into, foundations or whatever that support these, you might be supporting something that you hate and they hate you. But they'll keep the money. They don't mind spending the money. They just don't want to hold to your values, and they won't hold to your values. This was Governor Emerson. Was he a slaveholder? Yes, he was. Was he a Was he bad to slaves? I don't know if he was bad to slaves. I suppose you could just you could argue that just being a slaveholder was being bad to slaves, and certainly I think he's on the wrong side of history of all of that. Was he racist? Probably so. I can't really, I mean, you know, in today's world, we would say, well, yeah, if you own slaves, you are inherently racist. That might be true. And you could certainly give that argument, but you know, nonetheless, he was the heritage of anyone in the South. It is a part of our history. Okay, he was a slaveholder. He did use this legal means after slavery was abolished of hiring people. I'm sure it was regardless of color. I'm sure that in that convict labor program that there were probably some old white, you know, shareholders, what do you call them? Shareholders that, not share farmers, you know what I'm trying to say, you know, the thing. And to quote Joe Biden. So yeah, all through there, definitely, was there. Okay. Now, does that mean 100 years later, let's trash his name? 100 years later, nah, we got the money. Let's virtue signal. And virtue signaling really what it is. Because no, they didn't decide, hey, you know, we're going to give our money to the, some college fund for Black Americans or something like that. They didn't give a red cent away. Oh, they did. Now, someone might say, no. In the article, it talks about, and you can find it here in the article, they talked about how they're going to set aside $5 million from their endowment for Black scholarships, Black student scholarships. That $5 million is already in their endowment. That $5 million is making them money. It's going to make them money just the same. They honestly don't care if it's $5 million for Martian students. It all ends up just funding the seminary. And you said, well, there's no Martian students, so it doesn't fund the seminary. Yeah, it does. It's in their endowment. And in their endowment, it's going to go into the seminary. That is totally a bookkeeping, an accounting, a virtue signaling kind of issue that is taking place. Now, the Southern Seminary was started by and totally funded by slaveholders. They've got buildings that are named by slaveholders, all those kind of things. But what they decided to do is, we'll pick on this one guy who we slobbered praise over. But now it's politically correct for us to do something. We don't want to change the name on the seminary or on the building because that would be that would be too hard to hide. We just got to send a little bit of virtue signal out there, but we don't want to make the people with the brain mad because they give money too, and so the Joseph Emerson Brown Chair of Christian Theology is now vacated. Okay, what's that mean? It means, let's see here. I'm not sure if I can find it. Here we go. Mohler, remember Mohler held the Joseph Emerson Brown Chair of Christian Theology. Now, Mohler was elected to a newly created chair named the Centennial Chair of Christian Theology. What did they do? They took their pencil, they scratched out Joseph Emerson Brown, they wrote in Centennial. Oh, we are holy people, we are so good, I mean, look at us. Virtue signaling. Absolutely worth nothing. Either you want to totally reject your heritage, or you want to accept your heritage. Now, again, the Southern Seminary has many times, they just can't do it enough. They have repented of their slave-holding past. Al Mohler's not a racist. Al Mohler never had a slave, never held slaves. He never promoted slavery. I doubt you could find anyone at Southern Seminary who does, or any of the other seminaries for that matter. At some point, you have to stop and say, hey, guess what? I had a horse thief in my family tree. And I don't even own a horse. And it has absolutely nothing to do with me. So, Al Mohler's a smart guy. He's smart enough to know that horse thieves in his family don't have to go on his resume. Horse thieves in his family tree can be ignored, can talk about it, say, you know, great uncle John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith was a horse thief. I wouldn't have spit on him if he was on fire. Fine. Go for it. But he's still great uncle John Jacob Jingleheimer Smith, isn't he? Mohler's smart enough to do this. So why doesn't Mohler just say, we had horse thieves in our past and move on? Why doesn't he do it? Because he's got all the neo-Calvinist, progressive leftist evangelicals that he has to kiss up to. Al Mohler, time to quit kissing up. Southern Seminary, time to quit kissing up. And if you're going to drop Joseph Emerson Brown's name, at least say, rather than just say, oh, he was a terrible racist, say, he absolutely is the reason our seminary continued to exist beyond the Civil War. Little honesty would go a long way, wouldn't it? Okay, on this Monday, now that I have given my rants now, we'll go to Renee's question. Some say sin is sin. Is that true? If one steals a pencil, the consequences are immediately smaller than if one murders someone. Well, are you a pencil thief? I just want to check before, I want to be careful who I'm talking to. There's a lot of, that conversation, sin is sin. And with that, sorry, somebody's at the door. With all that, excuse me, we've got such a big operation right here. Big time operation. Now, with that, lots of, yes, there's all this stuff about sin is sin is sin is sin. That comes from internet theology. Does the Bible say one sin is another sin? No, it doesn't. The Bible says that if you go from the law, this sin requires this kind of sacrifice, that sin requires a different kind of sacrifice. They are not equal in terms of sacrifice. And as far as immediate consequences, certainly the Bible does. There are sins that lead unto death and sins that do not lead unto death. On and on you can go into various manners of things that take place. Now, where this sin is a sin comes from is a person begins to say, well, you know what, if you have, if a person steals a pencil, that is enough sin to send them into eternal perdition. That's enough sin to send them into hell. So in that sense, a sin is a sin is a sin. Now, I don't even think you have to go there, because the truth is that at least once we get to an age of accountability, it doesn't matter if we never sin. We are still separated from God. We still need a Redeemer. We still need the gift of eternal life that only He can provide. All of those kind of things are necessary and must be brought about. So I think, again, sin is sin. The problem with it is it's just bumper sticker theology, it's internet theology, Twitter theology, whatever you want to call it, and doesn't really dig into the issues of what the scripture is actually saying. Thank you very much. And let's see here. I am having a hard time getting these questions to work. Nathan, would you open up the YouTube chat for me? And he's going to see if we can get up. We had an update that threw us off just a little bit today. And so we have, hey, I got something while he's doing that. Something that I think you're kind of like. It's just a little postcard. It's a freebie. I don't even have one printed yet, but it's the cover of this right here. I found it from my grandfather, Shelley's grandfather, actually, who served in World War II, and there was a box of some stuff from World War II, and he had this, probably, no doubt, carried it with him one day, one part along the way, pointers for infantry troop leaders. And in those pointers for infantry troop leaders, he, let's see, I think I can bring this up on the screen for you here. We made this postcard that, there it is, what we're looking at. It's just we put one page of this, which I thought was wonderful. It's just maybe the third or fourth page in here that talks about some leadership issues, and it's so plain and so simple that I wanted it on a postcard for myself, so I made one for you too. It told the infantry troop leader what to do. First, size up your job. What are you to do? What's his enemy? What is your enemy? What about your own troops? What company weapons support you? Is your enemy now under heavy weapons and artillery fire? Has the enemy been or will he be softened by tank, airplane, bomb attack? What about the ground? Good fire positions for your squad, cover on your flank. Now, all of that is just all under size up your job. Now, really, two things I want to say about this. One about those fellas and one about you and I. It's kind of the same thing for me, is if I'm going to get something done, first thing I need to do is size up my job. What's going to work against it? What resources do I need? What enemy do I have on it? Am I under heavy fire? All of those kind of things, to use that war illustration, they just work wonderfully for figuring out, hey, I got to get something done. Size up the job. Now, second thing, when you begin to look at this, remember that these instructions here were for 18, 19, 20-year-old boys right off the farm. Now, I know sometimes like to say, they just had an 8th grade education. They could out-math us any day. Most likely out-language us any day. Most of them could out-read us any day. They could out-history us any day. But nonetheless, okay, they're 18, 19, 20-year-old guys. And now they're taken from the farm, and some of them may have never been out of the county, and they're taken from the farm and put down into, North Africa or France, through Normandy or whatever it is. And here they are, and for whatever reason, their charm and good looks or their bravery or whatever, they were made a troop leader. Let me pull that page, see what section that is here. It's the squad leader. Okay, this is what a squad leader did. And so here they are. They're made into a squad leader. Let's see. You got rifle squad, rifle company, the platoon leader, all that. Instructions is right here. This is the instructions for how to do World War II. Right there. Here you go, 19-year-old squad leader. There's your instructions. Move on. And these guys were faced with, hey, I have a real enemy. We're not talking figurative kind of enemy that we talk about when I have to get my job done. I've got a real enemy. I've got some men that I'm responsible for. There's a squad on my right, my left. Where's the rest of the platoon? Where is everybody? What are they doing? Trying to analyze this. And do I have any support? What's up there? Is your enemy now under heavy weapons or artillery fire? Has your enemy been or will he be softened by tank, airplane, bomb attack? Is anybody coming over? This is the 20-year-old guy from the farm, now in France, trying to do this. And the point that you're going to see in a moment is, here's his instructions. No doubt he's got some orders, but it's pretty simple. You got to do it, and you got to do it like this. So, first, size up your enemy. Second, I love this. Decide without hesitating. What is the best way to do your job? Forget other ways. We can, in trying to figure out how to carry out the war, maybe the war is just, building a business, cleaning up our backyard, cleaning the kitchen, whatever. That's our task. Or figuring out an election, whatever it is. We can sit around, and we Americans have become prone to do this. Let's sit around and let's, we've got to study all the options. We got to do blah, 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 blah. And 7 months later, we haven't done squat. That doesn't work in a war. And here again is the 20-year-old, and he's the squad leader, and he knows what his orders are. And he's got to look here, look there, look up, look down, and make a decision. So, without hesitating, what's the best way to do your job? Forget other ways. Well, let's see. I think we could do this, and we could go this way, we could go this way, or we could this, and those. He said that basically they told these squad leaders, make a gut decision and do it. Make a gut decision and do it. I saw years ago some study by executives that talked about gut decision making. I think Donald Trump's a pretty good gut decision maker. And it was the executives did this. Somebody did a study on executives, and what they discovered is that the executive can do 6 months and $1 million worth of study, and he'll come up with the same result as 3-second gut level. This said, make the decision. Make the decision. That's number 2. Number 3, give your order. Tell all your men what you know about the enemy, what you know about your own troops, what your plan is, what your squad is to do, what each man is to do, and let's all do the same thing, and where you're going to be. Point out the ground if possible. That one little page, that big, fit on the back of a postcard, that told them how to do World War II. I think that's why those men came back home to America and they built the country that we live in. It became known as the greatest generation, because literally they came and they built the cities and they built the suburbs especially. And they built the highway system, and they built, all of that stuff that we enjoy today, because they looked, they said, here's the problem, here's this one will work, let's do it, let me tell you what to do. And they never looked back. There's some good things in that. Do that, try that with your kids, by the way. Put away the stupid books about, raising kids and what this and how it's going to affect them psychologically, and whether or not it's going to give them, cramps in the night when they're 40 and blah, 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 blah. Figure out what you need to do, make a decision and do it, and never look back and tell the little princess or the little demon, this is the way it is. We're done. And wow, it'll change your life, won't it? Okay. Now let's get back. I got my questions up. That was a filler. He's been ready for me to get back to the questions now for about 20 minutes of that filler. But Manny says, would this time happen after the rapture? He's referring to a scripture. Let me pull up the scripture here. And 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. Is this after the rapture, but before the Antichrist is revealed? 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 11. For this cause God shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. What's the timing of God sending the strong delusion? Let me back up just a second. Remember that today in our dispensation, the nation of Israel is, the words used are not strong delusion, but it's a blindness, a partial blindness or temporary blindness that Israel is under. So I think in some ways, strong delusion seems stronger even than blindness, because delusion is you look at it and you say, yep, sure enough, it's a tomato. That's strong delusion. Now, blindness is, I don't know if, wait, I'm feeling something here. What is that? Yeah, it's not a tomato. What is that? It's a plant of some kind. It's a beautiful African violet. Well, good, because I don't need a reason to live. I need an African violet. That's what I need. Now, difference between blindness and delusion. But again, in some degree, there's some similarity there, that Israel is under a blindness now. The world itself is going to come under a blindness later, but even stronger than a blindness is going to be a strong delusion. Now, when is this strong delusion is the question that Manny asks, a very valid question. When will God send them a strong delusion? Let's back up just a little bit to get some context. And so Paul says in verses 1 and 2, I'm writing to you because you're shaken up and you shouldn't be shaken up. And you're shaken up because there's been the appearance that I might have said that the day of Christ is at hand. And the reason you're shaken by that is because I never said it. And I taught you different things. And now you're hearing that I'm saying that the day of Christ. And so you're saying, well, wait a minute. Paul has changed his tune. He says, no, I haven't changed my tune. It's a fake. It's a forgery. I've never said that the day of Christ is at hand. So that was kind of the background to it. And then he goes on to say, let no man deceive you. That's what someone was trying to do, is deceive by a fake letter. For the day of Christ shall not come. Now, the day of Christ is not just the tribulation as a whole, but the day of Christ is really the judgment. When Christ comes, he judges, he establishes his kingdom. Let no man deceive you, for that day will not come, except there come a falling away first. Now, we've talked about that before. Is that a rapture, as Andy Woods teaches, or is that a spiritual apostasy, as David Reed teaches? Either one of them works for our occasion here, so we're not going to dig into it. So there's going to be either a rapture or a falling away. And that the man of sin be revealed. Now, this is the Antichrist here. So a rapture or an apostasy, and then the man of sin be revealed. Now, the question about the strong delusion in verse 11, is it before or after the man of sin is revealed? Where does that fit in, before or after the Antichrist? I don't think we can answer it yet, even though we want to say, okay, first the falling away, second the man of sin, and then all the way down here in verse 11 is the strong delusion. So you have the Antichrist first and then the strong delusion later. That might prove to be the case, but doesn't have to prove to be the case, because he can say in the intervening verses that the strong delusion is either encompasses it all or comes even before it all. Let's see if we can carry this out. And by the way, let me say, it'll be too long before you'll have forgotten the question by the time we get there. But I'm starting 1 Thessalonians this coming Sunday at 9:45 if you want to get in on the ground level of a new study, Sunday morning, 9:45, 1 Thessalonians. So, first the falling away, second the man of sin, and then it talks about this man of sin. He opposes and exalteth himself, showing himself to be God. Verse 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things. So, that deceptive letter you got, ignore it. That's not for me. Go with what I said when you saw my mouth moving when we were together. I am saying the same thing now as I was saying then. Let me say, and as we study 1 Thessalonians, we should take this into account, that Paul tells us that you can interpret 1 Thessalonians by 2 Thessalonians. So if you come up with an interpretation of 1 Thessalonians that does not fit 2 Thessalonians, it doesn't work, because it's got to fit this chronological scheme right here. I mean scheme in a positive way, because he says, hey, same position. I haven't changed right here. Now now ye know what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. This is what withholds the man of sin, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work, only he who letteth will let until it be taken out of the way. So something's holding back, and then shall that wicked, that's the incarnate Satan, the man of sin, shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Here he's really, there's a lot of time in 6, 7, and 8. You've got the withholding that is right now, all the way to the destruction of the Antichrist. This right now is in Paul's day. So verses 6, 7, and 8, you go all the way from Paul's day through the day of the Lord, through his second coming and the judgment when the brightness of his coming. That's the second coming. So from Paul's day now through the second coming. So he will be taken out of the way, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all the powers and the lying wonders. We talked yesterday in our sermon on Revelation how he comes out of the bottomless pit. And with all deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them a strong delusion, that they should believe a lie, that they all might be damned who believe not the truth. Now, this little section right here, let's take it. So 6, 7, and 8 goes from Paul now to his coming. So from, let's just say, 50 AD to the point of his coming, which is still yet future. So 6, 7, and 8 covers 2,000 years plus. Then in verse 9 and 10, there's a little word about the man of sin, how he's from Satan, and how he deceives with all deceivableness. This is his work, is with all deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish, because they received not the truth of love, that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send. Now, I think, and we obviously would want to dig in to verify this, but it looks to me like, when did these people not receive the love of the truth? I said the truth of love. It's the love of the truth. When did they not receive the love of the truth? I think you could build a decent case to say that was even prior to the rapture. Had they loved the truth, they would have been raptured. Because had they loved the truth, they would have discovered the gift of eternal life, the gift of being brought into the body of Christ. They didn't love the truth. They came into the tribulation, and they didn't love they had no love of the truth that they might be saved. You know, after the rapture, what is the possibility of being saved? There is a big argument. Can anybody be saved after the rapture? Certainly, I think nobody can be saved by the gospel of the dispensation of the grace of God, because that's going to be done with. So if they're going to be saved, they're going to have to come into Israel and the commonwealth of Israel and the covenants of Israel, and they're going to have to live by a Jew, and they're probably going to die. But you know, who's going to do that? It looks to me like after the rapture, the only people who are saved in a different manner, and they are Jewish people already. Now, again, you'd have to build all that argument in a 3-day seminar, but you'd have to build all that argument. And for this cause, because they did not love the truth, God shall send them a strong delusion that they should believe a lie. You know, again, we really would want to lay a stronger theological case. I think in the end, it's always going to be a theological case, not a textual case. That is to say, if it was a textual case, it would tell us somewhere. We could search the scripture and it says, oh, right here is where the strong delusion comes. I think instead we have to build the case, and then we have to come as the attorney, the prosecuting attorney, and say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present to you that God's sending a strong delusion at the point of the rapture, or at the point of the midpoint, the abomination of desolation, or whatever it is. And we'd have to convince with Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. I think we could make a very good argument to say that this strong delusion comes when they have. I'll put point 10, verse 10 at the rapture. They received not the love of the truth. This was even prior to the rapture, that they might be saved. And here's the rapture. And so God then shall send them a strong delusion. I would put this together. Now, you could argue, it would be a weak argument, but you could argue that God might even send the strong delusion ahead of time, before the rapture. I say that's a weak argument because if you totally argued that, that would mean verse 11 is a prophecy about the dispensation of the grace of God. It's Paul speaking, so Paul could give a prophecy about this dispensation. So it's possible. I just don't think it's all that great. But I wanted to look at the Greek here just real quick and see if it gave any insight in verse 11. On account of this, we'll send to them, God will send, God is the subject, will send to them a working of error. This is the ergon word, ergonomics we get. So it's a very practical kind of work is what ergon, something's ergonomic. A working of error unto believing what is false. I think at the time of the rapture is when God shall send that. It's in the future active indicative third person sense. So God will send, God shall send is a good interpretation of that. Now, interestingly enough, you might be able to argue that even though God has not sent a strong delusion, you might be able to argue that a strong delusion is at work in our world today, because that's a natural result of not loving the truth. If you don't love the truth, you will find yourself in strong delusion. And there is such a need. We could talk about the election, but we could talk about the pandemic response. We could, pick. We could talk about history, whatever it is you want to choose. If there is not a love of the truth, a person deludes themselves. A person enters themselves into a strong delusion. And you know how easy this is because all of us have led ourselves into strong delusion on some things. Because, we want something so badly. Get my English correct. We want something so badly that we don't look at all the signs. We ignore all the signs. Even though someone is coming and saying, stop, 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 we just keep on going because we don't want to hear the truth. And, every one of us, it has happened to. And we fool ourselves or we put ourselves into a strong delusion. So there's a little bit of that that's natural. Now imagine that if that's natural and then God sends that, whoo, Katie by the door. Everybody's under a strong delusion. And that's what you got. So I'm going to, again, it would take a lot more study and I don't think it'd ever be totally proven. I just think you could build a pretty solid case. But let's not get under a strong delusion until we do it someday. But I think you could build a pretty solid case to say that this God shall send the strong delusion comes at the time of the rapture, which means that is then prior to the man of sin being revealed. Where is that in verse 3? That the man of sin revealed the son of perdition. So in my theology, of course, there's the rapture, and then there is the soon telos, not the end, but the things that go with the end. And then after 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years, then comes the 7-year period. And it's at that 7-year period that the man of sin will be revealed. And to some degree, you could even argue he's not fully revealed. We don't totally know it's him until the midpoint of the rapture, and the things in the description here in 2 Thessalonians chapter 3 really are talking about from the midpoint onward. That's when, without shadow of a doubt, yeah, that's the guy. Not really at the confirming of the covenant, because we don't know enough about that. We don't know if maybe there's 30 or 40 people who confirm the covenant. So we can't narrow it down there. Thanks. Excellent question, Manny. I appreciate you. Let's see. Greg in Locust, North Carolina. Do you have any idea what the one world religion might be and where it might be headquartered? Well, based upon our statistics, I'm pretty sure it's not randywhiteministries.com. I would, there are two easy options, and I'm going to reject both of them. One easy option is to say the one world religion is Islam. I talked even yesterday briefly, and I've talked a number of times, and it's in my book on the Antichrist that needs to be revised, but is available if you do want to read it in the unrevised version. I think that it's not Islam. I think Islam is going to collapse. I also think it is not Catholicism. That's the other easy option. Yeah, it's Catholicism. I think to take Islam or Catholicism and say those are the future one world religions and therefore it's based in Mecca or it's based in Rome, I think that's eisegesis. It's reading the Bible with the lens of what is happening today. And down through the ages, of course, most people in the Christian world would have said it's Catholicism, and therefore it's based in Nashville. I don't think so. I think Catholicism is just about as bankrupt as Islam. And certainly with this current Pope they've got, they just well close up and quit being Catholic because the Pope's not even Catholic anymore. And I think Catholicism is going to go by the wayside, honestly. In our lifetime, probably not. Greg's a former Catholic, though. I mean, you know lots of former Catholics, don't you? And it's losing its strength and its hold on society. I think it'll be about as powerful as the Methodists one of these days. So I don't think it's Catholicism. I think it's something that is not here yet today, and that is, it's the religion of the Antichrist and the worship of the Antichrist, the worship of the beast. They will be forced, the one world religion will be idol worship. They will be forced to make an idol of the Antichrist and to worship him, to worship the idol. And everybody who does not worship the idol will be slain. And it'll go along with the commerce system, the mark of the beast, and the worship of the beast will be the two things that are required. And that will be headquartered. If I could venture a speculation, I would say it would be headquartered in Pergamum. And that, of course, is in Turkey, near Istanbul. I'm going to see if I can pull up a map here and show you. Bergama is what it's today called. And let's back out a little bit so we can map that. There we go. So this is the Aegean Sea here. Here's Izmir, Turkey, which, let's see, in ancient days had a different name, which will come to me later. So here's Istanbul up here. And I've been to Istanbul. I have not been to Izmir. I've not been to Pergamum. Here's Greece over here, the Aegean Sea. I have been through the Aegean Sea. Let's see, here's Thessalonica right here. This is Macedonia, the old region of Macedonia. This is the country of North Macedonia. Interestingly, the country of North Macedonia is not in Macedonia. The Macedonians are here. The North Macedonians chose recently, North Macedonia is a very new country, chose recently, it's remember all this here used to be Yugoslavia, and now it changes every other day. Anyway, I think here, Pergamum. Why do I say Pergamum? Because in the book of Revelation, I know you, Pergamum, you dwell where Satan's throne is. I think right here is where I would keep an eye out for the Antichrist to build a new city, and that city will be his dwelling place. That's my speculation. Mark on YouTube. I'm not very familiar with Randy White. Hi, Mark. I'm Randy. Nice to meet you. Glad you're here today. Someone who knows him better, could you answer me this? Does he believe, as a dispensationalist, that salvation is always by faith in all ages? Or does he believe that certain time periods, like the tribulation period, people must persevere with good works to be saved and prove that they are saved? Thank you. And thank you, Mark, for an excellent question. I will be happy to answer that question. Standard dispensational answer, I'll even say, in standard dispensationalism, and I almost never use the word standard in a good light, I'll tell you that. Standard dispensationalism insists salvation is always by grace through faith, not of works, lest any man should boast. And yet that totally disregards Paul, who says that he was given the mystery of the dispensation of the grace of God, and that this mystery in which you could receive salvation from all sins, even those which you could not be saved from the laws of Moses, Acts 13, 38 and 39, that this mystery was hidden in God prior to the time of being revealed to the Apostle Paul. That would make it utterly illogical to say that salvation by grace through faith, the hallmark of the dispensation of the age of grace, has always been. It's like saying, I'm a dispensationalist who does not believe in dispensations. So I reject that idea. So I think that first of all, salvation, like we think of it today, that is, I'm saved. I have received the gift of eternal life. I am going to die someday and be absent from the body and present with the Lord. That kind of salvation is new. Prior to this dispensation, you'll not find anyone in the Old Testament, for example, ever say, yes, I am saved. I have invited Jesus into my heart, if you even want to use that terminology. And I know that when I die, heaven will be my home someday. No, they died. They went to Sheol. Their life, was then to wait for the judgment when Messiah would come. Even Lazarus' sister, remember, Jesus says, he'll rise again. Oh, I know he'll rise again in the last day. She didn't say, oh, I know he's in a better place. He's with the Lord. He's absent from the body, present with. She says, no, he's in the grave. He's in Sheol. He'll raise again at the last day. And then he'll be judged. And then they'll see if he's saved. That was salvation in the Old Testament dispensation. Now, after the rapture, after this time comes here, then we have, I think, this dispensation of the grace of God is no longer. There's 7 years remaining under the dispensation of the law. Why wouldn't it be the same criteria as then? So then, to quote from Mark Bailey, by the way, you're not the Mark Bailey that was the immediate past president of the Dallas Theological Seminary, are you? If so, we should talk, because there's a lot of changes that should have been made at Dallas Theological Seminary. But nonetheless, does he believe that in a certain time periods, like the tribulation, people must persevere with good works and be saved in order to prove that they are saved? I would word that a little differently, but my basic answer is yes. That's what it'll be. In the end, you can read Revelation 2 and 3, the churches to the assemblies that will be in that, the Jewish assemblies that will be in that, and he says over and over again, persevere, endure to the end. There's Jesus in Matthew 24:25, when he's speaking at the Mount of Olives, and he's talking about that future. He says, those who endure to the end will be saved. And so they have to remain faithful under what I would tweak a little bit. You said must preserve with good works to be saved. In a very broad brush, that's true. What they have to do is preserve under the law. Under the Torah, they have to live as Peter would have taught early on, prior to the time of Paul, within the Torah, within the bounds of the law, and live there. If again, broad brush, we can call that good works. That's what they have to do. And then they come to the end and will hear, well done, good and faithful servant, enter into the reward of your master. And there is the point at which they receive their resurrected bodies and they inherit the kingdom that has been promised to them prior to the foundations of the world. So we live in this time in which there is an unforeseen dispensation. So you can't read it from the pages of the Old Testament, and you can't read it after the rapture. This is a different time period in which we live, and Paul is the apostle who gives us the information about that. I appreciate your good question, and delight to have you on the program. I hope that you will come and see us again and be a part of us. Okay, I think that I am out of time is what I think, and I also have an appointment, so I am going to leave your questions right there and pick up on that tomorrow. Been a delight on this Monday to be with you for Ask the Theologian. So much more tomorrow. Join me again at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, whatever that time is, wherever you are, and we will have a delightful time. Biblical, theological, worldview questions. If you want to send your question in advance, it's question@randywhiteministries.org. By the way, I try to give priority to the live questions. But sometimes you just say, I don't know if I'm going to be on, or I just like to have an alert when my question is going to be on or was on, and if you send it in, then that's what you get. Question singular at randywhiteministries.org. It's been great to be with you. randywhiteministries.org is the website. Dispensationalpublishing.com, and lots of good stuff coming down the pike. Look forward to seeing you. I think we have a full week of broadcasting this week. As far as I know, we don't have anything out of the ordinary. You are a delight. God bless you. Pray for our country. Pray for me. And I'll pray for you. We'll see you soon.